He was also a great physician. He wrote a book on Ayurveda, the ancient medical knowledge of India. Some people say he didn't write it. It's written under another name. Tradition says he did write it. Anyone who has that great of a knowledge of the chakras, the subtle drops of energy within a human body, would be drawn to the study of medicine. Also, in Tibet, medicine is studied. Great medical tantras. I believe that it would be very wonderful to study those at Diamond Mountain in the future. There are many highly qualified Tibetan physicians in Tibet, Mongolia, and northern India, or all of India. And I've had the honor to translate for several of His Holiness's physicians, and I think it would be wonderful to have them here and teaching courses on a visiting basis. They're too busy to stay, I think, but a lot of the medical tantras are related to the higher practices of the secret teachings, of which what we consider yoga is a part. The study of the inner workings of the inner winds, inner channels, inner energy centers, which, if developed properly, change into the body of an enlightened being. Master Patanjali also is considered the father of modern, father of classical Indian dance, which is a very great and high science. Again, this is natural for a person who is interested in the subtle energies of the body, which are linked to your meditative states. And I want to say one thing clearly, since we're on the subject. People ask me, do you mean to say we should all go run to take yoga classes? I'm not very interested in exercise, actually. And I want to answer clearly. There will come a time in your Buddhist studies, during the secret and most advanced parts, when you will be doing exercises which are very similar to modern yoga techniques. These are meant to work on the subtle channels and to speed up the process of enlightenment. People ask me, well, what yoga tradition should I look into? I don't think it matters. The modern yoga traditions in this country, like the Shivananda tradition, Ashtanga tradition, Master Iyengar's tradition, the Jivamukti tradition, even the Bikram tradition, and other ones I'm not familiar with. They all have the same basic ways of manipulating the body. I think what's crucial is that you find a teacher that has a good heart. The exercises are not very effective without a good heart. So, should you run out and take yoga now? I used to make fun of the Venerables in New York who did yoga. I confess and regret it here. You can report to them. But if you feel like there's a spark of something there for you in the future, then you have a seed for it, and you can do that. I don't think more than half an hour a day at the beginning is needed. You don't have to worry that it takes a lot of time. As you go along farther, you may have a wonderful student who is a black belt in Kung Fu, one of the retreatants. They want to know, does this do the same thing to my subtle channels? I think it does. If you have a dedicated teacher, and if you follow that path with compassion, then I think it can have a similar effect. Some people can get the same results without any kind of physical activity. Some people are special that way. And so I think each person has to follow their own inclinations. People ask me, where can I find a good teacher? I think every single teacher that we have had in the retreat borders, one of Tai Chi, and we've had, I think, maybe 7 or around that teachers of modern yoga techniques. I haven't met all of them, but from what I hear by notes among us retreatants, I think they all have a very big heart. I think they're all highly qualified, and I think all of their traditions are authentic. And I think they might know someone in your city where you live, if there's no one in your own place where you live. But don't get nervous and think that we're all going to be jogging and standing on our heads. It's not the point. Sometime in the future, as a small but very important part of our higher studies, it can be very useful to be able to manipulate the inner channels by means of the outer body. You can also do it from the inside through deep meditation techniques, especially through Tonglen, breathing exercises, and we'll be learning all of those in a tantric way in the future. So if you have any inclination, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. You will still move along quite well. Where were we? Patanjali. So he was a great teacher of dance, and some of the people who are studying the higher teachings in the retreat have been taking formal classes in classical forms of dance and also modern dance. This can also be very powerful on your inner channels, and it was a deep and strong tradition in Tibet, especially among the monks, to do sacred dance. This tradition was hurt very badly during the loss of Tibet and during the loss of Mongolia. We had the honor of studying briefly with the last great master in Mongolia of sacred dance, and also some in Sera still survives quietly. And this can be a very powerful method of working on the inner channels also. It's not bad to get a start now, and then when the time comes, we will go into it in the proper way. But it's good to get a start now. People ask me, I'm too old. I say, hell, I'm 50. You're not too old. And frankly, you don't have a choice. So take it gently, softly, easily, happily, and it doesn't matter what your age is. Working with the inner channels is something that I think a person who has seen a lot of life can actually do better. So Master Patanjali was a great dancer, and he's recognized as the father of Indian classical dance as well. He wrote an incredible commentary on the Sanskrit language called the Mahabhashya. It's a commentary on Panini's presentation of Sanskrit grammar. Those of you who study the Vajrayogini sadhana teachings, there are many places where we visualize secret sounds throughout our bodies. You shouldn't think that you are putting a picture of a letter, of a squarish letter in your heart with a weird half moon over it or something. It's not like that. It's already there. You're trying to see something which is already there. That letter has been singing to you your whole life. You can't hear it. And so the study of Sanskrit is not some silly linguistic thing in India. It's an attempt to hear the sounds of the inner channels, which, if you can develop properly, changes your entire body into that of an angel who can help countless living beings. So it's natural that Master Patanjali would have all these interests. Now I'd like to speak about Yoga Sutra. If we go too long, we'll just pick it up tomorrow, okay? I won't keep you too late. We'll go back to the meaning of the words. Yoga comes from a Sanskrit word, root yuj, Y-U-J. The ancient Indo-European root is yog, which is Y-E-U-G. And that comes into English in the words yoke, Y-O-K-E, meaning to join two animals together for plowing. It's found in the word jugular, as in jugular vein, because the root J-U-G in Latin means that thing which connects your head to your rest of your body, which is your throat, your neck. So the word for neck comes from the root of that the word from yoga comes from. The word join comes from the same root, the J-O-Y. And the word joust, which means for two horsemen to meet each other, connect, to join. So you get this feeling of how the root means to connect or join. The word in Tibetan is Neljor. This is a case where the way that the ancient Tibetan translators translated the word helps us a lot to understand what yoga means. They sat with ancient Indian pundits for years. They discussed the best way to translate words into Tibetan. There was a royal edict, a command from the king, that no book should ever be translated without two pundits from India and two Tibetan translators working side by side for accuracy. Later on, there was by royal decree, a standardization of all the Tibetan words that came from Sanskrit. And you should realize that all the books we study in the monastery, the 5 great books, and all the courses in ACI are based on Sanskrit originals. So Neljor comes from 2 words, Nelma and Jorwa. Jorwa means to connect. Another form is jar. And even in modern Tibetan, the word for glue is jarsi, which means sticky stuff. So jar means the jor means to connect. You also know this word in Jorlam, the path of preparation, which connects you up to the direct perception of emptiness. Nelma, the first half of Nelmjor, means, it's a very difficult word to translate. It means something like the deep inner essence. So Nelmar Jorwa or Nelmjor means any practice which connects you to the deep inner essence. The word for the inner channels, nadis, and the inner energy centers, chakras, and even the inner diamond body is called Nelma, Nelme Lu, the deep inner body, the diamond body. So the word yoga, as translated into Tibetan and as understood 1,000 years ago by the great masters, was that it's a practice which connects you to the deep inner essence with connotations of emptiness. Sometimes emptiness itself is called Nelma. So the function of yoga, the meaning of yoga, is to connect us to our deeper selves. I think it's good for new people to hear the explanation of the word yogi and yogini. Somebody who does yoga is called a yogin. It means somebody who has yoga. So you might see it spelled yogin. And then when you use the word yogin in a sentence, it has to drop the N. So sometimes you might hear people talk about yogis. The feminine form is yogini. And of course you see that in the word vajra, yogini. In Tibet, the word yogi was not used lightly. Only very special people were called yogis or yoginis. There's even a vow against calling yourself a yogi or a yogini. And there are connotations to deep and secret practice. There are 4 great groups of secret teachings in ancient India and Tibet. The 3rd group is called yoga. The 4th group is called Anuttara yoga. The name of the 3rd group implies connecting yourself to the holy, they call it Druptak sadhana, reaching the holy angels, reaching the angels. And it's a pun, you see, because in one way, at the beginning, you come to see them, and they teach you. They might look like normal people to other people, but because you've been sincere in your practice, there comes a breakthrough one day, and perhaps someone even around you at this moment in this tent, you realize has been an angel all along. And then a connection is made, a yoga, and they start to instruct you. But the word sadhana or druptak, like the Vajrayogini sadhana that we do, has a second meaning. To reach an angel means to become that angel. And that's really what the word yoga means, to reach the angels first you reach them just by meeting them. Maybe they look like normal people to everyone else. That's not surprising. You know the story about Master Sangha who tried to save a dog who'd been hit by a cart and gained compassion at that moment. And then the dog became an angel. And Master Sangha ran around town with the dog on his shoulders and everyone said he's crazy. But only Master Sangha saw the angel. So yoga means trying to reach them in both ways. And I repeat, angel is not a funny guy or a girl with two wings and flutters around and tells you the lottery numbers for next week. It's a being, a Buddha. It's a woman Buddha or a man Buddha who can appear as a normal person. But they are operating on every planet in the universe at the same time. We all want to be like that. It's our ultimate goal. When you're a child, you want to grow up and drive a car. When you're a human, you want to grow up and be an angel and serve countless living beings, help them from the terrors of death and suffering life that we live. It's what we all want to be deep down. So yoga is a beautiful word for joining ourselves to that being and then becoming that being. I like the word sutra. It comes from a root S-Y-U, syu, in Sanskrit. The Indo-European root is the same, S-Y-U. And we see it in the English word so, S-E-W, and the W came from the U, and the S-E came from the S-Y. There's another word, suture, S-U-T-U-R-E, meaning a thread that a wound closed with a thread. And so the ancient meaning of the word sutra is a thread. And it comes from roots that mean to sew. What's that got to do with the book? The idea is that holy teachings, short holy ideas, are strung along a thread in a book. Sometimes you can think of it as pieces of thread twisted into a thread, like cords of a rope are twisted into a rope. The Tibetans translated sutra as do. Do means, has about 3 different meanings, but the first one is brief. Do means crux, brief, short book. Even in modern Tibetan, we say dorduna means, to put it in a nutshell. Do has another beautiful meaning. It can mean the intersection or the juncture where 2 or 3 rivers come together, which would be called Sindo, or even an intersection where 3 highways, 2, 3, or 4 highways come together would be called a Lamdo. In Sanskrit, it's the idea of Triveni, the 3 sacred rivers coming together. This has a very deep meaning for us. There are 3 major inner channels in the human body that, if properly cultivated, help you turn into an angel. And we are often working at the intersection, or the do, or the sutra of these 3 streams to help create that body and the physical exercises of what we call yoga in the modern times can help that process in a very rough way. So you get a feeling that sutra means crux, essential crux of a system which will enable us to reach the angels. This is the meaning of the word Yoga Sutra. I'd like to ask that the first line be read.
Anitya, ashuchi, dukkha, anatmasu, nitya, shuchi, sukha. Things that cannot last seem to us as if they will.
This is one of those cases where I've taken out only a piece of the verse because we don't have time, unfortunately, to do the whole verse. I'll be very frank. I have this vision of my first yoga classes. There are hundreds of young people, I guess mostly from NYU, walking in. And I'm looking at them. And they are about to embark on this thing which is to me a highly secret teaching. And I'm making a judgment, and it may be wrong, and I have to say that at the beginning. I don't know that each of those young people wasn't a tantric deity or a high lama, but it may be the case that there are people who are looking upon yoga as a system of physical exercise. They hope that by attending these classes they will become stronger. Almost everyone is hoping they will lose some weight. Frankly, me too. And everyone is wondering if they'll look like David Life or someone healthy, strong, trim. And that can be a reason. I'm afraid if it's what it looks like to me, and maybe my eyes are certainly not pure yet, but it could be that people are thinking about their physical body and its health and its strength, and they undertake yoga as exercises. And if I had to grab one of those people and sit with them in a room, I would say, look, Yoga Sutra, accepted by every school of yoga in the world as the grandfather or grandmother of all yoga teachings, the most ancient, or the principal book on yoga teachings. There's a line in there that says, things that you think are going to last won't last. Don't be naive. You know, you are getting older as you stand on your head. You are 1 hour older from the time you walk out of the class than the time you walked in. The process of aging is going on while you exercise. You are dying as you exercise. There's nothing sadder to me than to meet a person who put all their hopes in an exercise program and even spent years and got good at it, and then they simply got old and couldn't do it anymore. This is not the purpose of yoga. This is not the purpose of the holy teachings of Patanjali, Master Patanjali, or all the other great saints. Yoga exercises are only a tiny sliver of a larger plan which can take you beyond death itself. And if anyone ever asks you, why the hell did a Buddhist monk teach a yoga sutra out in Arizona, you can say he has only one concern, that people have to die. And there's a way not to die. And people have found it. People have achieved it. Maybe people sitting quite close to you. And imagine how it might feel to such a person to sit and watch a room full of people who must die simply because they don't know something. So the first line from the Yoga Sutra that I think anyone should hear is this line: your body won't last. Your friends, your husband or wife, your children, the people around you in this tent, if they don't learn the real teachings of how to reach the angels, they will die. It's a life and death matter. This place, Diamond Mountain, all the teachings of ACI in New York, all the efforts of the lamas from Sarah, they have only one goal. That's to help people who are dying. Help people not to lose the people they love around them. Next verse, please. Oh, sorry. Nitya and Anitya. Nitya, the root is Ni in Sanskrit. The ancient Indo-European is En, N. And it came into English in the word in, I-N. And the idea is that there's something about you inside. You have a independent nature which protects you from dying, and that's not true. Nitya means will last forever, because it exists in and of itself, which is wrong. The Tibetan word is tapa, which means unchanging. Then actually everything is anitya. Is the negative in Sanskrit and in Greek, and it comes into English in the negative. In Greek words like apolitical or amoral or atheist, meaning not. Even in the word ignorance, the A changed to I. There's a power which is making our bodies get old during a yoga class. That power can be stopped and reversed. And so, but to learn it, you have to want to learn it. And you have to admit to yourself that even if you become a very good yoga student, you're still getting older every year. And there'll come a time when you can't do those poses. There'll come a time when you can't walk up the stairs to the yoga class. There'll come a time when you can't put your foot out of your bed. And that has to be that has to drive you to learn how to stop it. The original purpose of yoga is to stop those terrible things. These are accidents. We don't have to live like that. Next verse. Nitakpa is just the negative of takpa, meaning changing, which means not unchanging. Everything is changing all the time. Next verse.
Anda karana shaitilyat prachara samvedanach cha chittatya para sharira avishha. And they realized that the body itself is a prison.
There are no keywords here. I just thought it was a great verse. Prachara means a prison or a fenced-in area. The CHAR came into English in the word incarceration. The CAR in incarcerate comes from the CAR in prachara. CHAR. This is actually a verse about a very high tantric practice of moving your mind out of your body into another body because your own body has become like a prison, called Tongjuk in Tibetan. It's one of the 6 teachings of Naropa. And but the point is that all of us are stuck in this kind of a body, flesh, blood, bones. You don't have to stay in that kind of a body. You weren't meant to be in a body like this. You were meant to be in a body made of light. A body that could go to countless people at the same time and help all of them. And so it's important that we look upon this body, mortal body, as a prison that we want to bust out of. Using the techniques of yoga. Next verse.
Stiram Sukham Asana. The poses bring a feeling of well-being which stays with you.
Master Patanjali really only devotes 1 line to the physical exercises out of almost 200 lines. This happens to be that line. I thought if you're going to talk about Yoga Sutra to people interested in the exercises, you better throw in this line. I'll talk about asana first. Asana is a Sanskrit word that means a seat. It comes from a root long as, which means to sit down. I've checked very carefully, and the word as is not a derivative of as. But it certainly seems like sitting down involves your ass. But the root as comes from an old root as, as. The Indo-European root is es, and that came into English as is, to be, and the word essence, and the word yes. So all of these words have the same root as asana. Asana means then a seat or a position in which you meditate originally, and one big function of the yoga exercises was to be able to sit for long periods in a yurk, in a desert, and meditate. And if you read great books like the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, the first series of asanas, there's more of the book spent describing how to sit for meditation than there is for describing the more active yoga exercises. So originally, asana or yoga exercise meant a comfortable way of sitting or exercises to enhance the quality of your meditation sitting. there's a very important word, Vajrasana, which means the Vajra asana. Vajra means diamond, asana means seat, and it's said in scriptures that on every planet there's a Vajrasana. It's what we call Bodh Gaya nowadays. In the old days it was called Vajrasana, the seat of the diamond. Every enlightened being is said to become enlightened in that place, on the diamond seat, in the Bodh Gaya, or the Vajrasana of their own world. Even nowadays when we bless our seat for a long retreat, we do a Vajrasana mantra on Kaden, which means a seat, something you sit down upon. Sarah Monastery is called Densa, a seat of higher learning. And Vajrasana is called Dorje Den in the Tibetan language. So you get the feeling of Den meaning seated properly, and the original purpose of the yoga exercise was to work on your channels and to allow you to sit in long meditations where you were also working on your channels from the inside. We'll talk more about working on channels from the inside, because if you don't work on them from the inside, just working on them from the outside doesn't allow you to reach the goals. So you can say that these yoga exercises bring you some kind of sukha. Sukha means pleasant. I like the word su. The first part of the word is su. Su comes from the ancient Indo-European root is esu, E-S-U. When that prefix came into Greek language, the S disappeared, and you get U, like euthanasia, or euphonic, or euphemism, or eurythmics. Which means good sound. So ESU, the S drops out and becomes EU in our languages. In Sanskrit, the E dropped out and it became Su, which means good. Ka means a hole. The space is sometimes called Ka. When you say Kechari paradise, it means to move in the space. Ka-e chari, which is Vajrayogini's paradise. And so Ka has come to mean some kind of open space or cavity or hole. And people say that sukha came from a word that meant a good hole in the middle of a wagon wheel, which means the wagon will run smoothly, and that's where the word sukha came from. This is a case where the accent of the word sukha is useful in understanding the word, and I think those of you who study Sanskrit in the future at Diamond Mountain, you will learn things like the accent, which is not taught much nowadays. The ancient Indo-European root is Gai, G-H-A-I, and that came into our language in the word chasm. The C-H-A comes from Gai. The word gap, the G-A comes from Gai. The word gape, to make a hole out of your mouth. And there's one more. Yawn. The Y-A comes from the G-H-A. So it means a good hole, which means to feel good or to ride smoothly. And of course it's not the goal of asanas or yoga postures to just feel good. It's sthira, ultimate happiness, ultimate feeling good, which cannot be done in a mortal body like the ones we have. But that's the one line that introduces the ideas of a yoga exercise, which has now become what people call yoga. And it's important to know, I think. Next line, please. And I think we will probably not finish all the lines today. We'll probably go another 15 minutes. And we'll finish the rest tomorrow. So one more, maybe one or two more lines.
Satu, Dirga, Kala, Narayantara, Satkara, Asivito, Dita, Kumahi. Your practice must be steady, without gaps.
The key word here is Nairantarya, and it means without gaps. Master Patanjali's sutra is following exactly the same structure as the Heart Sutra, which you were reciting as I came in by accident, I guess. The Heart Sutra is an outline of the 5 great spiritual stages that every one of us will go through. Master Patanjali's book is the same. This line comes in a section which is describing the first 2 paths, called the path of collection and the path of preparation, or path of accumulation and the path of preparation. These are the first 2 stages of every person's spiritual growth. And in a few lines later, Master Patanjali describes the 5 specific parts of what we call Jorlam in exactly the same way as they are described in all Buddhist texts. But he starts to talk about the idea of practice. And the first thing you'd want to tell anyone who is trying to learn these deep things about their channels is that you've got to keep it up steadily. His Holiness the Dalai Lama is constantly telling us it takes time and it takes hard work, and you have to be steady. You have to keep it up every day. The word antar came into English as inter, as an interruption, meaning you don't practice steadily. The Tibetan is bar. I stuck it in there because you know the word bardo. Bardo means the place in between your death and your next birth. So you get a feeling for how antar means an interruption. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about meditation or yoga asanas, exercises, or retreat or study. It all boils down to the same thing. You have to do it every day. You can't have an interruption. You can take days off to rest, and you should, but they should be planned. Every Sunday I'm going to rest. Every Saturday I'm going to rest. But the other 5 days, you can't get anywhere if your practice is not steady. It's much, much better to start with 5 minutes a day and do it every day than to start with an hour and a half and then do it less and less every week that goes by. It's just very simple and very practical advice from Master Patanjali. Start with small, modest practice, but don't skip any days. And you can't succeed in the higher teachings unless you get in the habit of doing it every day. So cut down on how much you do. Don't try to do an hour and a half of yoga or an hour and a half of study or an hour and a half of meditation. 15 minutes is fine, 10 minutes is fine. But get in the habit of doing it every day at the same time. Otherwise you will surely fail. Next verse.
Vyadi Sthana Samshaya Pamada Alasya Agrati Paranti Darshana Alambada Bhumikatva Anuvastitatvani Chitta Vichepas Tentarayaha. And the fifth of the obstacles is laziness.
Okay. Obviously, this is only a piece of the Sanskrit verse, in which Master Patanjali presents the obstacles that you're likely to run into on the first two paths, especially the path of preparation. The key word here is alasya. Is the negative, like we spoke about with anitya. I like the word las. The Sanskrit root is las. The Indo-European root, the older root, is las. And it means to be lively or frisky. And it came into English in two words. The first is lust, L-U-S, and the second is lascivious, meaning frisky. Alasya means not so frisky, and it means laziness. Those of us who have been in 3-year retreat have discovered a deep spiritual truth. The only reason you don't do your practice is because you don't want to. You don't really want to. It's not that you're too busy. We can't say that. We got not one single other thing to do. It's frightening. We got 24 hours a day. Those beautiful, incredible, extraordinary caretakers and their helpers, and the director and his wife, anything we want comes in. You know, I try to throw them off balance. I say, I need a book from Lanalva, Gujarat State, India, printed in 1930, by next week. And it comes. And anything we need to eat, anything we need at all, it comes. So we have no excuses except our own alasya. We just, you don't want to do it. You don't really want to do it. That's the only thing that lies between you and becoming that angel we talked about. You just don't really want to do it. Whether it's meditation or yoga or studying a scripture or helping out with the washing the dishes. There is no other excuse than you don't really want to do it. People do what they want to do. It's not that you don't have time, you just don't really want to do it. Or you would make the time. We do what we want to do. And so alasya is the first great enemy to be beaten back. It continues all the way up to the highest stages of Buddhist practice. You will have to be fighting against your own alasya. There's a special kind of alasya that doesn't want to go higher. I'm comfortable at the level of teachings I have now. I'm comfortable. I understand these teachings I've gotten so far. I'd like to sit here for a while. You can't be like that. The minute you feel comfortable at a certain level, you have to move up to the next level. You have to fight your way up to the next level. People are waiting. People are hurting. We have to go to the higher teachings as soon as we are capable. We have to try to move up as fast as we can go with our body and mind. There will be times when you try too hard and you move too fast and you hurt yourself, and then you have to get back up and keep going. But you can't have that kind of laziness that is waiting or doing some practice that you find comfortable and not trying to stretch further. The higher practices are difficult. They require great faith. Many people's faith breaks at that juncture. But we have to try. Next verse. Last verse. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Antaraya, the key word. Antara again means to go between. Aya comes from a Sanskrit word, it's a simple letter I, which means to go. The ancient Indo-European root is EI, and it shows up in English as the IT in circuit or exit, and itinerary, the I that starts out itinerary, all meaning to go or to travel. So AYA comes from those roots. It's a form of those roots. So it means goes between. Parche, is that the Tibetan listed it? Yeah, parche means an interruption. Kongala parche chenpoche song in modern Tibetan means this guy's a pain in the ass and he's interrupting my work. So parche means interruption, something, an obstacle. It comes in a very important word, parche melam, which you know, means the period of direct perception of emptiness, which goes on in an uninterrupted flow. Sorry, go ahead with the next verse, please.
Tat pratisheta vartam eka tatva abhyasaha. And if you wish to stop these obstacles, there is one and only one crucial practice for doing so.
Master Patanjali, in the first of the 4 chapters of his work, describes the obstacles that can block our practice. He makes a long list. It's very close to the list of Master Nagarjuna in his Srileka, which we talked about once over dinner together at Vajrapani Institute, if you ever remember. It was a fundraiser. But the 2 lists are very similar. And he says, Ekatatvabhyasa, there's one crucial practice for stopping all of these obstacles. I'll tell you about the word first, and then about the practice. I think the key word is abhyasa. That's made of abhi and asa. Asa we've had already, which means to sit down or to work hard, which means to practice. And then abhi is the abhi in abhidharma, which means higher, or moving right up to the end. And it appears in the English word epitome, EPI, and episcopal, words like that. Master Patanjali is saying, look, there's one practice that can stop all of your obstacles, even laziness. And my dear yoga teachers have also told me many times, when I'm struggling with my head about to collapse, look, do it for somebody else. And you can push yourself a little further all the time if you're doing it for someone else. If you're not just doing it for yourself. You can always push yourself. You can find energy, power deep within you, no matter what you're doing, meditation, study, trying to serve those crazy demanding retreatants. You can always find a little more power if you forget yourself and try to do it for other people. Imagine how it feels to be able to see every single living being there is in the universe at the same time. Imagine how that might feel. There isn't anything more joyful than struggling, working hard to serve all of them. There's nothing to compare with that kind of happiness. There's no single happiness available to a human being which is higher than working on that level. It's what all of us are meant to do. It's what you really want to do. It's no fun being a grubby, selfish little thing. We all want to be a being who can serve countless others just in a moment's time, in every moment. That kind of happiness overcomes every other obstacle. You'll never have any obstacle that you can't get over once you are working for all living creatures. Once you can see them. Okay, see you tomorrow. Don't forget your lineage holder now. You have to look it over again this evening. Do it the easy way, and it's the most powerful way. You know, go up to somebody here who looks nice that maybe you don't even know them and say, you know, where are you going to be tonight? And you want to have dinner together, you want to hang out. And then just talk about these ideas, and that's the fun way to review. Do it again tomorrow morning, and then we'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
Here is the crater filled with the smell of incense covered in a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, the four continents, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind I make them the paradise of a Buddha, and offering them all to you. By this deed may every living being experience the pure world. By the goodness